why not so many people are actually trying to trying their best to think, to envision a better future, to try to build it. Because this is actually hard. Or to reflect, to be aware, to try to understand, because it's so hard that it's scary. This is another thing you should understand. It's so hard that it's terrifying and it's scary. And if it's not scary for you to think, then you have not been thinking enough, or you have moved through your fear. Because when you start to think, you realize that you have more questions than you would be able ever to answer. And not only you have more questions than answers, as you think, your questions start to grow continuously, and there are less and less things you actually can answer. um so it's terrifying because well your limitation. If you're self-conscious, you're aware that you're limited, and the scope of things to think about, the greatness of reality, the complexity of things, the multiplicity that lays down before you is unimaginable. And it terrifies you. And so, what does it mean? It means that if you would search for a reason not to do it, if you would search for a reason to stop, you have all the reasons to do that. If you want to search for a reason to stop trying, you already have all the reasons. They're just there before you. You're too small and limited, and you are presented before infinity that you can think of. Before the eternity you can pound on. That's how they say it. So, whoa, that is hard to do. And um so the question is, what are you doing with it, right? Or what can you do with that, if you would be able to do anything? And um why would you even do anything if it's actually just so hard? um and well, because what else you've got not to do that? Like, again, all the reasons not to do there are just before you. um but you don't know what will be before you if you will try to go for it, if you will think farther, if you will, you know, try to envision things, uh, no matter how hard it is. And well, so this is another thing, is that you don't know your own potential, you know, and the only way for you to find out is to try. And it's unimaginably hard because there are all the reasons and signs for you to stop, actually, just actually. um and you know that, for example, when you start anything new, you know um when you start to, I'll take my example, when you start drawing, no matter how good you are at it, when you start doing it, uh it can be really scary. Like, not many people would actually accept it. Would see it for what it is, but uh, I recognize it that when I'm sitting in front of the canvas uh, or a screen, um, and I just, have in my mind what I should do, but like, and it's not even a clear vision of what I should do, but it's like some pieces of it, some blurred understanding, some blurred idea, and to try to bring it into reality, something you are not even sure of, this is hard work. But the only way to actually do it is to attempt to do it, right? And um, I think the reason why it's so scary is of the great potential that there is. I truly think so. There is this phrase I remember till now from the Game of Thrones, and it's the phrase of Littlefinger that chaos is a ladder, right? And so, what would that mean? Well, that would mean that there is a potential in chaos. It is problem to some and the opportunity for another. It is a problem for those who stop trying, uh, who are overwhelmed by it. By it's an opportunity for those who see how to move through that. Uh, and that's what we can understand. That we can use all this terrifying potential to our own good. And it is exactly in it being potential, you know, the all possibilities it's provides us with that even we don't know. It's a bad side, but it's also a good side because, well, how many things can you actually know? Not so many, right? But if the kind of things they are or could be for you are so great as to be beyond your comprehension, this is a good thing for you because there are lots of things that could be there, much more than you expected or imagined it. So if you see it in this way, you can use the chaos as a ladder and move through your fear and continue when it's scary, because it's better to do even if it's scary than not to do it. I keep it in mind that it's scary to think. That's what I remind myself each time I become confused and frustrated upon any small topic that is actually not so small, that it turns out to be complex and difficult to think about, and is all this raises all these questions that confuse me, bring many doubts, and etc. That's what I remind myself, is that, well, it is scary to think, but how scary is it not to think? How scary is it to stop at where you are? And if you are at some miserable point, or at least at the point you're not completely satisfied with, at least looking for a better destination, then it should be scary for you to stay where you are. And if the only reason it is not is that you're not aware of what that potential holds there, the potential you don't know, the potential you can't imagine, uh, holds for you. So it makes you a disservice because you're much quicker to imagine a threat than a benefit. And It's much easier to be scared of the threat than to be motivated by an uncertain benefit. But if you have a good imagination, then you are looking forward to that potential to see what it could be there, you know, because you can imagine things. And if you truly can imagine things, you can imagine not only terrifying things, but beautiful things, because it's easier to imagine terrifying things. The world's full with these things, and we naturally already um, are quick to give attention to a potential threat. But it is harder to imagine the kind of benefit you didn't yet met, the kind of beauty that surpasses your experience. This is way harder. So if you do have a good imagination, you are capable to imagine the positive and not only a negative. And if you have a truly good imagination, then you don't want to stay where you are. You want to see that great potential for what it could be. And that's what a good artist does, as he sits before the canvas, as he sits before the screen. If it's a digital artist, and as he doesn't see exactly that vision of a painting he's yet to draw from his head, but just a resemblance of it. Um, a good artist, a really good artist, start to work with what he can visualize in as much as he can, and then sees what else he can do on his way of doing it as he does it. And the mistakes don't stop him. The fears of failure don't stop him. And the ugliness of his mistakes and limitations, of the things he did wrong, doesn't stop him either. And I always said that good artist is not afraid of failure. And it's not even a good artist is not afraid of failure, it's that an artist can't be afraid of failure. There is no way for you to make an art and not to move through your fear of failure. So perhaps you do have this fear, and you surely will have this fear of failure, but artist moves through this fear, and that's exactly how he becomes an artist, because he doesn't stop when other people do. And that's why many people don't become artists, because they stop when they see that things don't turn out to be as they planned them and imagined them to be in their head. Though they didn't even imagine much, but even that turned out to be bad. And this stops them. And all the reason screams about their incompetence. That they ain't got a skill, they ain't got an understanding, and they ain't got even a good vision. And that stops them. But the one who doesn't stopped by all of these signs of reason, who wants to do it despite all the limitations and fears, to see all the potential he has, a person with a good imagination that truly wants to see and create a beauty, moves all through moves through all this fear and turns out to be successful in the end.